The topic of discussion this morning, and we're going to be looking at how the the Swahili language is going to promote bilateral trade in the East African community. A big decision that has actually been taken up here was the fact that President Museveni, the cabinet, decided to make Kiswahili the second official language in the country. So this has actually been a move that has been there for quite some time, as different countries along the East African community bloc, Kenya, Tanzania, have already been Kiswahili as a national language. Well, this coming up in Uganda clearly shows you of why it is important for such a discussion. Well, the last time I had this particular guest, we were looking at the African community integration and looking at a 2030 journey where there would be chances of Uganda and the East African community to use Kiswahili as a language to unite the rest. But now this time round, we're looking at the East African we're looking at Kiswahili as the second official language in the country, and pretty much a situation whereby we would want to know how will this utilize bilateral trade in the East African community, and how will this bolster international, East African community trade in Uganda. And joining me this particular morning, I'm joined by Mr. Byambwenu Peter. Good morning, and thank you for joining us, sir.
Yes, good morning. Nice to meet you again.
Okay.
It has been a privilege to be here again. So good morning all viewers and those who are listening to us. So I'm really very glad that I'm back here. As he has said, I'm called Byambwenu Peter. I'm the head of the Citizen Mass Campaign, East Africa 2030, where we envisioned that by 2030 we might be having one country with one head of state, with one currency, with one armed force, and one foreign policy and home affairs systems. So our mission is called to all citizens across all the 7 member states to realize their potential to claim the integration sooner than, because it has been long overdue. And our main objective, we are just because CMC EAC 2030 is a Pan-African initiative in trying to popularize the East African integration across the member states, whereby our objective is there are 3. One is to understand the East African community. The second objective is to demand the integration sooner than later. And then the third is to sustain integration. So like what we've been saying about Swahili, Swahili, actually Uganda, it has been long overdue to initiate this. Because when you look at the East African region, the former 3 nations, that is Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda has been behind for quite a long time. But actually, I'm very glad that this time the cabinet has made it mandatory in primary and secondary to teach Swahili and to be examinable. So that will actually increase bilateral trade, because how would you trade when you cannot actually communicate the language that your consumer can speak? Okay. So not only that Uganda doesn't speak Swahili, it does, but when you do comparisons in terms of statistics, we are actually behind all the member states. But government coming in to put this in place and to make it mandatory, I think it will help the entire Uganda and across the region.
Okay, do you think it was a rightful decision by the cabinet to take this up?
Yeah, it was a right decision, because when you look at the African Union sometime back, actually recognized Swahili as an official language for Africa. So if you see a big organization where Uganda belongs is now coming out to ensure that Swahili should be the language for the entire Africa. And in 2019, the SADC region, that is Southern Africa Development Community, actually recognized Swahili. And as I talk now, South Africa and Botswana, they're teaching Swahili. So they want Swahili to take all over Africa. And in my own view, it should not only target on Africa, but far beyond to Caribbean countries. that is the Barbados, the Jamaica, and those nations. So where Africa can have one language that can unite us all. Because the problem of Africa has been that we copy and paste. That's how would you copy the language, a foreign language, and then also, and you hope to develop, because a country that does not speak the common language where the citizen can understand fully will never develop.
Okay, now let's speak of this clearly promoting bilateral trade in the East African community. How possible can this be by us adopting Kiswahili?
Yeah, the sooner we do it, the better we can be there. Because now, if now the cabinet, and I would love that IALA should now start. Actually, I had one of the IALA member of parliament, IALA representative, I think he was from Kenya. He was actually saying that no, the East African Legislative Assembly should start debating in Swahili, but others rejected, and our members of parliament from here also rejected, because it has not been in practice for quite a long time. But now, this time that now the cabinet, as I talk now, there is a thing ongoing for training cabinet and members of parliament Swahili. So once we do this, so I think when it comes trade and those bilateral agreements that the countries sign and those agreements, I think it will help us much far better.
Okay. All right. And now let's speak of adopting from the business world perspective. For example, we've got small and medium-sized enterprises, people who are actually under that particular sector. Pretty much some of them are non-literates, I should say. Most of them are illiterates at the time. And now Kiswahili has just been included to the curriculum, because now government is looking for teachers who are going to be teaching Kiswahili. But speaking of it in this perspective of the world, and then Kiswahili being adopted by the traders, how possible will this be? Will they really adopt it very fast?
They will adopt it. You see, when you have something that you are saying to someone and doesn't know the language, you try much as you can to convince that person. That implies that you have to learn that language whereby you can do business. Like what you are saying, that this now the government is looking at teachers that can teach Swahili, because now Swahili is not like something so hard. Like many people, for example, us, we came in Kampala, we never know Ruganda, but we can speak. So the teachers now, and we can write Ruganda, by the way, let me tell you this. So now teachers, if the government can lay strategies of how it can train the teachers, I think the teachers can do it better. And then when you talk about trade like this business formal sector, I think that one will do a great job, because like as if these non-tariff barriers are not there, like people, if they're free trade in Tanzania, in Congo, in Kenya, because when you are used with people that you trade with every day, you learn. Yes, you can start speaking broken Swahili, but as time went by, you learn some words, because you cannot actually adopt language in just 2 days or 1 month. It's a gradual process.
Okay.
But I think it will work better. I think as government, but also there has been, now one would ask, will the government sustain it? Because the problem of Africa, not only Uganda, has been sustaining it. You have the good idea, but implementing it has also been a problem. But if the government, I don't know, I'm not so sure that the government will sustain, because I know my government.
Okay.
I know the government. But since it has been put in the curriculum and what and so on, if it is implemented well, it will be a better for everyone to speak Swahili, and encourage everybody across the Uganda to start speaking. At least try some words. We speak, then we'll learn. Even the media here.
Okay. All right. And when you look at countries like Kenya, Tanzania, and the DRC, by the way, Kiswahili is one of those languages that are being used in discussions or trade transactions in one way or the other. But one bigger challenge that we've faced is adopting that language in here. And one of the reasons as to why it has actually become a problem is that back in the time, we grew up knowing that Kiswahili only belongs to the soldiers, and some people actually thought if someone uses a different language like Kiswahili, then you're going to be robbed clean.
Yeah, so what you're saying, you know, the problem all started way back when our countries were getting off from the British. In 1960s, early 1960s, actually President Julius Nyerere he delayed actually independence of Tanzania, and he wanted Kenya and Uganda to gain independence at the same time. So for him, he realized that once these countries gain one independence at one day, so that it means that we are going to have a lot that will unite us, including Swahili. So what we are saying, what we are talking about, when these leaders, actually Kenya, Kenyatta could not see it, and Obote here could not see it. That's why our countries gained independence in different days. But now, when you know, when Uganda got independence, then we had the first president and the second president. As you say, I'm not going to all that, take you all that. But in 1971, when Idi Amin took over Uganda, and because his government was not associating fully with the citizens, and these people were speaking Swahili. So when the Idi Amin's government, they were killing many people. People were being mistreated, and the people that were mistreating them were the people who were speaking Swahili. So they ended up people knowing that Swahili is a language for thieves, for robbers, and for killers. That's how Uganda did not adapt Swahili. That's why actually Uganda eliminated Swahili in their mind among our citizens, because of the Amin faction.
But look at it in this way.
But now that we have a stable government, now we are now moving. Now it's a mindset change for all Ugandans to adapt Swahili.
Anyway, how is it going to help increase or develop our economy? Because we, as the business world, feel more excited that, remember, the benefits that come with people having a unified language that they can use in business transactions makes it very easy for them to continue to draw business and draw minds closer. So how important is this to our economy now that it is now the second official language in the country?
Yeah, it is important, because it will actually, because when you do communicate with someone and the language they understand, because for instance right now you're speaking Uganda's English, but there are some doesn't speak the Uganda English. But if we have the one language like what Kenya has, actually it helps us in transacting business, in doing the other thing, and even militarily. So that means it will ease trade, because it takes me back like what I was explaining when I started, that how would you do business with someone who doesn't understand the language you're speaking? So it's much easier if you do business to someone who understands. Because if you call this paper in Swahili, how is it calling? How would they call it? When you call this camera in Swahili, how would they call it? So it eases our communication, and it easing our communication. That means it will eases our trade. So Swahili, because I would imagine that speaking one language for all these millions that we have, you know, the East Africa now, we are around 300 million people. So I would imagine that 300 million people are speaking the same language. What kind of development, what kind of culture are we developing? What that attitude that we as black people can speak, that we can stood on. So that's a great achievement that we can actually have for the rest of our times.
Okay. And well, we can speak of language as being something of nature. I would think to say so, but clearly language has been a key factor in business. We along the edges. When you look at back to the early 1980s, the early settlements at the coastline in at the East African coast. Back then, it was actually very hard and difficult to have people who understood the same language, because then translators were being used. If you're to trace back a little bit of the historical background of Kiswahili on the East African community bloc, but then in the long run, the colonialists came into the journey, and then more and more. But then when you look at business transactions with the language that you understand more, even if people say the money language is easy, but when it comes to bargaining and making this,
will never be there.
Even racism, if at all we have the same language and we can still speak the same things, then it becomes very easy. And for the business people, I think it is something that you could pick up. Imagine going in Kenya, Tanzania, and then make more money. And I think money, but speaking a language that everyone does understand. Because if you come to Uganda speaking Kiswahili, DRC Kiswahili, Kenya Kiswahili, Tanzania Kiswahili, then business can prevail. Now, Mr. Viambueno, before we actually go in for a break, I would want to at least know, have we taken time to implement this particular one? To implement the Kiswahili as a language in the country, as an official language in the country?
Like, I'm not getting you because
have we delayed? Or
yeah,
it is the right time?
No, it's actually, it has been long overdue.
Okay.
But since now government has woken up to implement this, I think it's the right time to go forward. But the most importantly is to ensure that what we have made it official, let it be official.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And speaking of making it official, it's something that you would definitely wish to have, definitely. But then also, I would want to understand, what does this now mean to East African community, as Uganda has Kiswahili as part of the official languages? What does this mean to the entire community?
It is actually a good deal for the entire community, because as we speak more Swahili here, other African countries will be in position of joining this East African community. Actually, I'm glad that Somalia has been trying to applying to join the East African community, but there are a lot of things to be done. Ethiopia will actually in future join. Even Sudan will join the East African community. That's a great achievement, that if East Africa, all of us can speak one language, that implies that all African countries will actually learn from us as an example. And this will help us, this will drop out this segregation of people. Why should you segregate your people from others? Okay. As long as you can speak the same language, it will help actually the community as the first growing economic bloc in Africa. It will boost trade, first of all. It will eliminate racism. Segregation will never be more. By the way, let me ask, there is actually a question that has been puzzling me all the time. Why is it that we, like for example in Uganda, we have many refugees? Why refugees are in this region, the East African community, when we are in one country, when we are in the same bloc? That's why we are saying that government, these states have been delaying. If these countries had been united as a single country, all these things wouldn't be there. Why should I become just a refugee from Sudan?
Okay.
How do you should you become a refugee? From here they are Congo, and they call you a refugee? No, it shouldn't be there. So we have to define ourselves, and this is the time that Africa has started to define itself.
All right. And after the break, we are going to be looking at how best we can put these traders into context with Kiswahili as a language that they can use in trade. Stick around with me. I do return with more with Smart Means Business, still with the topic of discussion. Good morning.